Hi everyone. I've started out using an 8 by 10 canvas board and I covered it with gesso. These leaves I got at the Dollar Tree. They're like a mesh, and I removed the stems from the back and I'm going to Mod Podge them on. And I had to use a couple of coats of that Mod Podge to seal it. That little piece I just showed you is a wax paper cutting that I had left over from die cutting, and I thought I would just add it here on this project, and I had 3 of them. And then I'm going to go ahead and cover this whole thing with gesso again. This is paper mesh that I found at Walmart. I think I got this around the first of the year, and it's really cool. It's like burlap, but it's made out of paper. And I'm gonna add some paint to this, and it's kind of a gray. It's called granite acrylic paint, and I'm also going to distress it a little bit here, and I left some part of it white. This is burnt sienna acrylic paint, and I'm adding this now because I want to put some crackle over the top of that. This is Americana Decor crackling. First time I've ever used it, and it works pretty good. And I'll let that dry real good before I add the top coat. And I'm going to use this granite gray as the top coat, which is the same paint that I put on that burlap paper. And I'm learning that it depends on how much crackling you use and how much top coat you use to get different types of crackling. So it's a learning process. This is Heartfelt Creations script stamp, and I'm using StazOn ink and just stamp in several places for some background. This is Dreamweaver stenciling embossing paste, and this little stencil I made just using a little handheld tiny hole puncher, and I just punched a lot of little holes in it so I could use this for stencil, and it works good. This is silk acrylic glaze, and I want to just put a light glaze over the whole thing, kind of to try to cover up all the white on the canvas board. And it still gave me some color through the crackling, which I wanted. And this is the red acrylic glaze, and it was pretty bright, so I had to wipe it down a little. And I learned this technique from Andrea Kidman. She does the neatest stuff. And so you just add a little color like you want and take off as much as you want. And adding the green here and removing a little bit of it. This is iZink, and the color is ombre, and I'm going to put it over the top here and spray some water on it to make it run down. I got water all over everywhere, but this was a lot of fun. And so I like this process, so I decided to see what the acrylic glaze would do. I added some yellow across the top and then dabbed some red on top of that to try to get an orange look, and then sprayed it down, and so that gave me a little more color. This is messy but fun. Okay, right here, these are tea bags that I had washed and dried, and it just says cling stamp, and I'm going to stamp with StazOn ink, and I just need a couple of little strips of it, and I don't know why I didn't just stamp the whole thing. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted at first, and I realized now I could have stamped the whole thing, but anyway, I'll use the leftovers of that for another project, no problem. Right here I'm using a big brush. I'm just dry brushing some gesso over it because it was really too busy and I had to tone it down a little. Right here I'm using gelatos to put some shading around those trees. I'm sorry, leaves. These leaves right here is a pack of leaves that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm adding some of that crackle to it. I wasn't sure how it would react, but I wanted to try it out. These are some letters that I had. They're like puffy foam type letters, and I'm adding some orange paint to the top part, and as I add water to my brush and fade it down, it turns into yellow, and then I add some of the burnt sienna over the top. Well, I wanted to get kind of a gradient look to it. And right here I'm using a Posca pen and just writing happy on it, and I use the medium tip and a fine tip to do this. And I'm using an orange to color in the inside just a little to give it some color. This is Vintage Photo Distress, and I'm going to add that to the little tags. And this is the same process that I used for making the strap in my last video, if you're interested. And as you can see, I have y'all down there, and later I decided not to use it. Okay, here I'm using a seamstress wheel, and I'm marking along the edge or embossing it. And then here I'm putting Mod Podge on. And this is the other one. I'm going to put the fall letters on that. I wasn't sure what size paper I was going to need. I just made a strip of paper, and so once I add the letters to it, I can trim it down to the size I want. Yeah, I'm adding walnut stain to the edge here. And using the little embossing wheel here. And then I put the little faux stitching on the edge. I'm using black soot here to finish off the edges. Okay, right here I'm using a vintage photo around the edge of the canvas board. And now I'm using a walnut stain. And I'm going to finish it off now with some black soot. And I run some of that black soot over the top of the little dots and some of the leaves. These decorative scissors, I don't know about y'all, but mine only cuts paper, and these are silk leaves, and after I put the crackle on, it really protects the leaves. So I wanted to distress the leaves, and all these scissors do is chew them, and so that's what I'm doing. I'm just using the scissors to chew them up, but it doesn't cut them. And so I add some walnut stain to some of them and black soot to some of them to really give it that distressed look. And I'm going to start laying everything out now. And that happy tag, I did scrunch it up a little bit because I didn't want it to lay completely flat. I'm adding some trim underneath that. Adding some clock hands. This little flower I made following a tutorial, and I found this on Pinterest, and if I can find it again I'll add it to the bottom. Those round pieces of metal that you see that's laying there right now are metal pieces, and I soaked them in vinegar and salt for like a week, maybe longer, and it rusted them really good. I did some screws like that also, and after they rusted real good, I sprayed them with a sealer, and I love them the way they turned out. There's a little screw that I'm adding, and that's an upholstery tack that I used to tack on Happy. So this is finished, and I hope y'all like it. This was so much fun to do. Thanks for watching, y'all.